Hello, this is Seth Kniep'n at Real. Today I'm going to show you exactly how to find suppliers on Alibaba that you can trust. And there's really just 3 simple steps to do this. I've never once been scammed by a single supplier on Alibaba. That doesn't mean they're not out there. They are. But if you just be smart and look for the right things and be careful when you negotiate, there's a way to avoid that so you can find suppliers you can trust and work with. So the number one most important thing you can do is check their verification status. Now there are 3 different kinds of verification status for any supplier on Alibaba. The first one is called A and V. It looks like a little rabbit ear. And the A means authentication and the V means verification. And all it means is their company name, their business license, and their contact information was verified. Now for me, that is not enough vetting in order to trust them to work with. So I do not recommend trusting A and V as a legitimate way to work with that supplier. The second thing you can look for is the OnSite Check, which is basically where Alibaba staff go to their factory and they look at exactly what they're doing. They can see the factory, they've tested, they've basically been on site and they verified that this actually is a real company. Now again, this isn't a guarantee you would never get scammed, but if a company's willing to go to the pains of building a factory or buying one or using one, it's extremely unlikely that they're going to be trying to scam you. Now, when you look in Alibaba and you see a gold supplier, and I'll show you an example of one here real quick. So watch this. So if I go here and let's say I'm looking for a wooden vase and I want to sell a wooden vase on eBay or Amazon or my own e-commerce store, and I scroll down here, see where it says 3-year? See that little round gold? That is a sign it's a gold supplier and it means they had the on-site check. So that's pretty valid. I only prefer to go with 2 years or longer because if you go with 1 year, there have been a few that have got underneath the radar and they faked it long enough and the on-site check was not valid or they were using someone else's factory. But if someone's going for 2 years and they've had that second year of check, your chances are pretty slim that this is not a legitimate company or they're spending a lot of money to try to get away with a scam. Now again, this isn't the only thing you want to worry about, but if you do the on-site check, if you are going with someone who's had the on-site check, your chances are very strong. The way to see an on-site check, an on-site check supplier, it'll have a symbol like a house. You'll see a symbol like a house underneath the rabbit ears, and that is a sign that this is a valid supplier or much stronger than just the A and V check. The third one is what's called an assessed supplier, assessed. Assessed is extremely valid. I mean, it is almost impossible to be scammed by an assessed supplier. Now I will tell you it is very hard to find them because it is a lot of money they have to pay and a ton of validation and paperwork they have to go through in order to be validated. So if you look right here, so the A and V, which is just authentication and verification check, business license, contact information, that's it. Not enough for me. I would not trust it. On-site check, all gold suppliers have had this. They got business license, contact information, business type, company factory location, ownership status of the premises, photos of suppliers' operations. When you're on Alibaba, you can click on the company. A lot of times they will show you pictures of their factory. I understand they could just download this from the internet somewhere, but if it's a gold supplier, someone actually went on site and checked it. And then you got certifications from subsidiaries, partners, and contractors. Now for the assessed supplier. It has everything the on-site check has, plus about twice as much, a whole lot more. They even have verification of documents that they have to be able to pull up and show to someone who's interested in vetting their company. So those are the 3 things you want to look out for. I recommend on-site check. Gold supplier is great. Assessed supplier, if you are really afraid of taking risk, go with an assessed supplier. But good luck finding them. They're really hard to find because it's hard to get to that level. And again, I've never used an assessed supplier. I've always used gold supplier, never had a single issue. But this is like a first line of defense. Look at this as the first thing you need to look out for. The second thing I recommend is communication. Communication builds trust. Communication is very important. If you are pretty good with reading people, and I know this is not, it is not objective. I know it is insight and using subjective and insight feelings to figure out if you can trust someone, but it has served me well. I'm a pretty good reader of people. So when I communicate with them, how often they respond, the way they respond, that helps to build trust. if I have a relationship with someone, I usually can tell if I'm being conned or not. So I would recommend you start communicating right away. There are two ways you can do it. Actually, there's more than two, but two primary ways. One is through email. Another one is through Skype. And a whole lot of them, you like to use the WhatsApp application. Never used it before. I've heard it's really good for texting someone international. Skype is nice because you can actually go back and forth and chat and have a conversation. That's why I like Skype. The disadvantage is you end up spending a little more wasted time going back and forth, where an email forces people to reserve their time better. Now keep in mind, when you communicate with these suppliers, most of them are in China. I know there's a lot of people who feel like, well, if it's from China, it's cheap. I really don't care where it came from. I care about the quality of the product. A lot of things from China are actually amazing quality. If I can use an American supplier to support my own country, I absolutely will. But if this is how I have to get started in order to get a low enough price to make this work, then I will go with a Chinese supplier. Because they are 12 to 13 hours later or earlier than we are here, if you want to Skype with them, you're going to have to do it really early in the morning or late at night. There have been nights where I've spent the entire night communicating with suppliers to get the deal that I want, and it was worth it, but it's exhausting. Emails is a very efficient way to do it. You just have to be willing to wait 24 hours or 12 hours to get the next email. So you send an email in the evening, in the morning you can expect their response. Another key, if they don't respond quickly, if they take 2 to 3 days to respond, that's a reason I don't trust them as much. If they're overly eager, that causes me to be a little hesitant. Now let me give you a more objective way to validate if they're actually someone you can trust, and that is payment terms. There's as many ways to buy something on Alibaba as there are needles on a cactus. So make sure you narrow it down to just three. 3 ways it's really hard to get scammed, and I'll share them with you. Number 1 is PayPal. Now, if you purchase their product using your PayPal account, there is a 4.4% fee you will have to pay. Technically, they have to pay it because they're the ones selling the item, but they will add that to what's called your pro forma invoice, the invoice they send you, and you will have to pay that amount. Now, if you're doing a $10 purchase, a $50 purchase, you're getting a few samples, not a big deal. But if you're doing a massive, big purchase, okay, you are going to be paying, if it's a $20,000 purchase, you're going to be paying around $800 in fees. That is a lot of profit just sucked out. The good thing about PayPal is if they did scam you, you can go contest it to PayPal, and if the company does not have a valid tracking number to show it was shipped to your location or your warehouse or house, then you will win that battle and you will get your money back. It's just kind of a pain to go through. The other option is trade assurance, also called escrow. If the company allows you, if they do trade assurance, here's what it means. You pay them a certain amount of money for them to start production. That money does not go to the supplier. It goes into a holding account, okay? Then once they finished building the product, and they send you pictures to show you it's working and it's happening, then you pay the rest of the money and they ship you the product. That money stays in a holding place in escrow. So they don't actually get the money until you click a button saying the product was delivered. And until you click that, it stays there and no one can touch it. So it's a very safe way to purchase something from Alibaba. Even if they're trying to scam you, there's no way they can take your money unless you allow them to. So PayPal and trade assurance, also known as escrow, are 2 very solid ways to do this. Keep in mind though, if you do trade assurance, you know how I said PayPal is 4.4% fees? Trade assurance is 5% fees. So again, you're going to be paying a large amount of fees. And the same scenario, they have to pay Alibaba that fee, so they're going to add it to your pro forma invoice, and make you pay that. The third way, and the least secure, but the lowest fees way, is to do a bank transfer, also known as a telegraph transfer. So what this is where you are literally transferring money from your bank account to theirs. Now, here's the good side. I'll tell you the good side, then the bad side. The good side is, typically with most banks, that's $30 to $50 fee. The bad side is, if they scam you, it's almost impossible, or at least very difficult, to get your money back because they have the money. And the bank isn't someone that's just going to go and take the money from that bank. Now it becomes a bank war, and that can be a real pain. So be careful with this one. What I like to do is start out with PayPal or trade assurance for smaller orders or samples if I'm testing the product on Amazon to see how well it does. Once I've built a relationship with a supplier, and that's another thing. On Alibaba, let me show you here real quick. On Alibaba, you can actually see their response rate, which also gives you a reason to trust them or not. Like look right here, see this? Response rate, 80%. Response rate, 92.3%. This refers to how often, for example, out of 100 messages sent to them, how many have they responded to? 94.8%. If this is really low, either it's a scam or they're just a lazy supplier. But if this is high, I'm going to trust it and I'm going to have a good reason. And that's another helpful way to validate if it's a trustworthy supplier. But going back to bank transfer, or also known as the telegraph transfer, which is a type of bank transfer, it'll say T/T. T/T. That's how you'll see it in Alibaba. What you can do is you can set up terms. You can say, look, because this is less secure than PayPal or trade assurance/escrow, I'd like to do 30% advance payment to you, then you build the product, and then upon inspection and approval, I'll pay the remaining 70%. So you can work with the supplier, and usually they'll work with you, especially if they're a valid company. If they're really against that, don't go with them. If they really want your business, then obviously, they're going to work with you. Now, one more thought, just to give perspective. Let's say you're working with Supplier, your product is going bonkers on Amazon, money's coming in while you're sleeping, you're doing really well, and so you're ready to do a larger order like $20,000 worth. If you do that, if you do the $20,000 worth purchase using escrow, trade assurance, you're going to pay $1,000. If you do it through PayPal, you're going to pay $800 in fees. $1,000 is a lot of money. That's a lot of more product you could have purchased. So that's why I would go with a bank transfer or a telegraph transfer, and it's like a one-time $30 or $50 fee, and you're in a much better place. Here's a concept that's helped me a lot in online business. Some people, they don't do it because they're afraid of risk, okay? And if you are completely turned off by risk, then don't do it, because there's always going to be risk, all right? But for me, it's been worth it, right? I have passive income now. I can sleep and make money, and I get up in the morning and I look at my phone, and there's a lot of money there because I did what I needed in order to build that machine. But here's what I want to share. It's about where you put the risk. See what I mean? So in a sense, just be smart with your risk. Be calculated about it. Of course, everything's a risk at some level. So if it's a supplier you can't trust, it's better to put the risk with your money and pay a little higher fee, right? Once you can trust them, transfer the risk over to the supplier instead of your money and pay less in fees. And now you're risking, what if they tried to scam me? Very unlikely if they've been working with you for a while. Does that make sense? Hope that is helpful. My name is Seth Kniep'n It Real. In my next video, I'm going to talk to you about how to negotiate with suppliers so you can make sure you get the best deal possible.